So my son, his name's Hunter, and he is 6. And about a year ago, he decided that he was going to wear some fancy clothes. This was a shift for him from what he normally wears because Hunter always wears sweatpants. He does not like button pants, does not like them, or snap pants, right? We all agree with this, like he's not wrong. He decides, though, he's going to wear some fancy clothes. And so he starts by wearing his sweatpants and his T-shirt, but then putting a bow tie on just above his T-shirt. It was cute. Then one day he comes down and he says he's ready for church. And he has put on button pants. He's put on a button shirt, right? So this is a big step. He's wearing the bow tie around his neck. Didn't quite make the shirt. But then for like the coup de grace, like the crowning piece, were oversized sunglasses and a large beach hat. So one of those floppy beach hats that you would wear. And that's what he was going to wear to church. And it was his fanciest clothes. Now, I will tell you, I thought kid needs a hat. Like, if he's going to wear a fancy hat, I'm going to get him a fancy hat. So I got him a fancy hat for his birthday. He wasn't wearing it. And inside, like, I'm like, is he growing up? Is he feeling embarrassed? You know, like, my dad's heart is breaking a little bit. And I said, Hunter, why won't you wear your fancy hat? And he said, Dad, I just look too cute in the hat and people can't handle it. He does not lack for confidence. In Colossians 3, Paul tells us to put on our fancy clothes. And the fancy clothes that Paul wants us to put on are not clothes that look good or look nice, but they are the clothes that change the very essence of who we are. There's something that you can begin to put on and put onto your life that changes the very nature of who you are. And he says this in verse 12, as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, clothe yourself with compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience. Above all, clothe yourself with love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. Paul is inviting us to put in our fancy clothes. Now, Paul realizes this is not an easy thing. Paul says, listen, the clothes you wear normally are clothes that are full of anger, wrath, malice, slander, and abusive language. That's not positive. And he says you need to get rid of that stuff and put on love, kindness, compassion, and meekness. Now, this is not something we can do very easily. Because to get rid of the malice and the anger and the wrath and the abusive language that Paul tells us to, it means that we can't just layer something on top of it, right? We've got to do some soul searching. When I was at school a couple weeks ago, unbeknownst to me, Beth watched that Marie Kondo show that's on Netflix. You know, the magic art of magic art of tidying up or something like that. I don't know. Basically, it means you have to get rid of a lot of your stuff. That's the way that I've interpreted this. And so the first thing we start with is our clothes. So we go up to our bedroom, and you have to get all of your clothes out and put them in a giant pile in the middle of your room, which is somewhat daunting because then you realize, I have too many clothes. Like, that's the first thing you realize. And then you have to hold them one by one, so block out a good part of a day to pick up all of your clothes and see if they spark in you any joy, right? Paul is inviting us in Colossians 3 to condo our closet. That's what he's saying. Like, start going through this stuff in your life because there are moments in your life when you are filled with anger and malice and wrath and abusive language. There's moments when you are difficult and where you are breaking down the unity that exists between you and each other, and it's time to start getting rid of that stuff. Paul says that the clothes we need to put on, most importantly, he says, is to clothe yourself with love. And Paul writes this letter to the Colossians, and he's writing to a church that's struggling to get along. And throughout Paul's writing, you're going to see that he writes to churches that are struggling to get along. They have disagreements, kind of like we have disagreements. Paul's saying to these folks who have come from a variety of backgrounds and places and beliefs and understandings that there's a way that you can live together, but the way you live together is by getting rid of the bad stuff and by being clothed with love. Now, this is not an earth-shattering idea, right? Because throughout the Gospels, throughout the Bible, we hear that we're to love one another and we're to love each other and we're to live as people of love. So this is not a kind of a radical idea. Even outside of Scripture, you find it. The Beatles, all you need is love, right? There's this idea that somehow love makes things better and somehow love triumphs and overcomes all else. And I really believe that. I do. But sometimes I think we have the wrong picture of love. Because we think about love the way that we see it played out around us and in the culture, right? We think about love that makes us feel warm and fuzzy inside. We think about love that sparks that little bit of dopamine in our brains and makes us feel good, right? And we think about the love that we have for the people that we like and who are like us. And when we come to the scripture, that's not the kind of love that we're reading about. The kind of love that Paul says to clothe yourself with is not the love that makes us feel good. In fact, it is the love that makes us work. It makes us work harder than what we would have expected. It is love that challenges and stretches us and pulls on us. It is love that sometimes makes us uncomfortable because it is covenantal love. The love that we are called to share with each other is the same kind of love that God has shared with us. And when I read throughout Scripture, I see the love that God has for his people in Israel. I see the love that God has for us. And the love that God has for us is consuming and overwhelming. It's big. It doesn't go away. It's covenantal. It means that it is founded on this deep, meaningful relationship. We are a covenantal people. When we come to the communion table, we experience God's covenant love when we say, when our love failed, your love remains steadfast. And I would like to think that God's covenantal love is a preposition. Because for us to be people who love in a covenantal way means that we become people who are with others. We are with others. And this is lived out for us most powerfully in the incarnation. We serve a God who is with us, who has entered into our reality, who has entered into our neighborhoods, who has entered into our very existence to demonstrate to us the power of who he is and what we can become. God has come to be with us. The power of the incarnation says that love is with someone else, that we are present with them, that we are engaged with them, that we have come to know them. Love says that we move into the neighborhood. I have seen this lived out in a really powerful way. When I was in college, in my senior year, I went to a college that literally was in the middle of a field, so it was kind of out there. And I did a cross-cultural study one January in urban studies, and I lived in Northwest Philly. But I will never forget when I lived in Northwest Philly going to the host family's house that I lived with. And I took the subway and took the bus, and I got off, and I'm walking down the street to their house. And I'm walking down a street like I have never walked down before. There's bars on the windows, and it is rough and looks like a bad part of town. I come to find out that this couple, he was a teacher, she was a lawyer. They were very, very middle class, very comfortable, could have lived somewhere else. Decided that they were going to live in the neighborhood that he taught because they wanted to be with the kids that he taught. Love means that we are with someone. Love means that we are for someone. We are advocating on someone else's behalf. We are standing beside them no matter what. They know beyond a shadow of a doubt that we have their back. That's the kind of covenant love that we're called to. Love that stands beside, that cares for, that does not judge, but advocates for the best of someone else. Love that believes the best of someone else, that believes the potential and hope that they have. That's the kind of love that we're called to hold on to. That's the kind of love that we're welcome to when we say, clothe yourself with love. And it's love that walks us into God's kingdom. Love is not just for love's sake. Love is so that we can come together as God's people and announce this new way of being, that we can come together as God's people and announce this new way of living, that God's kingdom can and will be a reality on this earth, that if we work together just enough, if we work together, we can make earth look a little more like heaven. That's what we're doing. We're loving each other into God's kingdom, loving each other in such a way that we can begin to announce this new way of life where all things will be made right. I long for that day. I hope for that day. And I want to walk with you in love as we make that day a reality. To clothe ourselves in love means that we are with, that we are for, and walking into this new future. Friends, put on your fancy clothes. Clothe yourself with compassion and kindness and mercy, but most of all, clothe yourself with love. Love for each other that is strong. Love for each other that is with. Love for each other that is for. love for each other that walks us into God's preferred future, which is good and beautiful and right. May it be so. May it be so.